Hello, everybody. This is PSA Amigo, and as you can tell, I got into a car accident. Yesterday on the 25th, I was coming back home from doing some grocery shopping. Had my wife and the kids in the back, and on the way home, I rear-ended somebody, and I can tell you, I got the worst end of it. Um, my radiators basically smashed. I have coolant draining all the way out of the car, and I mean, I was about 45 minutes out of coming home, so it was a nightmare getting the car home. I had to keep turning it off, and of course it's a 95 Honda, so it's standard, so that just made everything worse. And it took us a while, about an hour and a half, but we got home. Um, it was rough. The first accident I've ever been in. Certainly the first one that I've ever caused. And it was scary. My kids were crying, and I was very stressed out. Still stressed out a little bit, to be honest. Um, just everything happened so unexpectedly. Basically, what happened was uh, we were coming on home. There was two lanes, so I was in the left lane. So for you Brits in the UK, I think that's just opposite the other lane for you guys. But basically, I was heading home, and I was in the faster lane, and there was a few cars in front of me, and I was not particularly close to them. I mean, I would say I was about, oh boy, I don't even know, but I certainly wasn't that close to them. Maybe 100 feet or so, maybe more. And we're coming up to a light, and the car, not the car in front of me, but the car in front of the car in front of me, slammed their brake because the light turned yellow, even though basically everybody could have made it. But slammed the brake. The car in front of me, I didn't know how close we all were, but I guess that there was three cars in front of me that were just bumper to bumper riding each other, and I was hanging back a little bit more, luckily. But the car in front of me made a quick, sharp turn. Just, I mean, had to be inches away from the car in front of him. Blew into the right lane, and luckily there was not traffic at that moment in that lane, so that person got through. But by the time they pulled out and cleared the way, I could see that the person in front of him, who I hit and rear-ended, um, had already stopped on a dime. Tires skidding. And by that time, of course, I hit my brake. My brakes are not pretty good. They're not doing well right now. Or yeah, I mean, certainly before the crash, and they weren't doing well after. So of course, I hit the brake. Brake locks up. Basically, I have two options. I can peel to the right and hope I don't get hit by another car behind me. Um, or I could try to squeeze in on the left between the cement divider and the car. And as you can see on the right side of the vehicle, the passenger side, I tried to squeeze in on the left in the where the cement divider was. And yeah, smashed into the back of this guy's car. Very nice people. But anyway, smashed into his car. He bumped the car in front of us. I didn't see any damage in the car in front of him, but they went ahead and wanted to file a report as well, which is fine. And I got the worst end of it, clearly. My headlight is shattered. My radiator, like I said, is gone. My hood was actually worse than what it is. I actually put my hands to it, smashed it down a little bit, and was actually able to unhinge it and take a look at my engine. And thankfully, the engine is okay. Just about everything else is okay. My car is so low to the ground that it might have actually saved it from, you know, getting some severe damage. But definitely, I have some more shots of it. But I just wanted to show this front shot so you guys could see. But it was an extremely stressful situation. I've never been in a wreck before, and the most heart wrenching and the most tragic part of it were my kids in the back. They all had their seatbelt on, but my kids in the back were hysterical. I got a little girl, a few months old, and then my son is only a couple years old. So of course he was traumatized, and kids can get PTSD from situations like this. So the first thing I said was, "It's okay. We're gonna be all right. We're all right." And the car was uh, stuck in the middle of the road. Um, I mean, the amazing thing were the people, really, because I live in California and we do not have the best drivers. I guess I'm not the best driver anymore either now because I got in a wreck. But we have some pretty mean people. The flipping the bird at one another is commonplace. Um, so I was expecting, some angry, fiery people to step out of the vehicles. That didn't happen. In fact, a gentleman behind me stopped his car, got out, ran up and checked on us. He popped his head into my car and was looking at the kids and asking if my kids were all right. And I appreciated that. That was really nice. And he was like, "All right, I'm gonna help you." And he said, "You stay in the car." And I couldn't get my ignition to work, so I couldn't turn my steering wheel. And he kind of helped me shake it a little bit, and I finally got it loose. And he went behind my car and pushed me all the way off the road. Um, Shook my hand and went home. So that was really nice. And it's the day after or the morning after, so we still have to do the insurance claims and whatnot. And this is my only family vehicle, so we're out of a vehicle now, indefinitely. So that's the other bad part. But I wanted to take a moment, after experiencing this and going through this with my wife and my kids. I really wanted to talk about what happens after something like this happens, like a car wreck or some kind of stressful moment, and what effect it has on our bodies. And I mean, I got in a car wrecked my car. Of course, you're going to be stressed out, you're going to be stressful, you're going to feel down. And I felt horrible. I mean, I was just staring into space, thinking about the repercussions of not having a vehicle and not being able to, help my family. Um, we had groceries in the back of the car too, so we have to go to, drive basically 45 minutes to get groceries. So it was rough, and I still have a tinge of guilt behind everything. But with the help of my wife, I was able to sort of evaluate the situation and come to a state of a thankfulness, because this could have been a whole lot worse. If I didn't hit my brake at the right time, I could have really smashed into that car. The guy in the car could have been hurt. He was fine. I could have been severely hurt. My car's airbags, I didn't know this because it was uh, handed down to me. Uh, but my car has no airbags. So, I mean, this could have been a whole lot worse, right? And, of course, you got kids in the back, too. That could have been a whole lot worse for them, too. I mean, I must have hit them at maybe 5, 10 miles per hour, but you'd be shocked how much damage that could do to your car hitting somebody at 5 or 10 miles per hour. So, maybe even more. And I started to realize that everything was going to be okay. You know, that yeah, I don't have, we don't have another car. We don't have, the means to really fix it. Luckily, we do have insurance. Not even my own insurance. It's under my father-in-law's name. He was nice enough to let me insure my car under his name or under his insurance to help us save money. But Other than that, we don't really have a whole lot to our name. Um, so it looks like we'll be riding the bus from now on. But I had to get my head out of it. I had to get my head out of the notion that it's all over, that I'm a failure, that um, screwed up big time and uh, made life hard on my family unnecessarily because I should have been a bit more cautious as a driver. Should have drove a little bit slower, maybe driven in a different lane, made better decisions. But all of that is stuff that I can't really change. It's not stuff that I can reverse. It happened. It happens all the time. I'm sure if somebody's watching and you have a car, you've probably dinked it, bumped it a couple times. If not, then kudos to you. But just beware. You can't really help how other people drive, and uh, being able to maneuver in situations like this is sometimes impossible. But I got home, and thankfully we made it home, and I just had to reevaluate my thinking because I was getting so down, and I was basically swamping myself with stress and anxiety. And what that does is it actually makes the situation a lot worse. Uh, all that's going to happen now that I know is that you call insurance, you exchange insurance information. We did that, and you just let insurance handle it. And in a few weeks or shorter, they get back to you and they let to what extent they're going to help with your car repairs, and that's it. That's all it is. You know, our ancestors used to walk on their feet, on the soles of their feet, to get by. They rode horses, carriages. Uh, now we have the luxury of being able to drive vehicles to get where we gotta go. And I was talking to my wife about it last night, and I said, I wonder what happened when carriages bumped each other and wrecked. Like, did they freak out? Did they feel like their world was over? Was it worse for them? Like, what do you do if you have a wooden wheel and your wheel cracks? Anyways, I digress. Uh, so I had to sort of look at it in a different way. I had to walk my son to school today. It took us about 20, 30 minutes to get there and back, and there and back again. Uh, but in the midst of that, my wife and I realized, this is fun. If I mean, it sucks we wrecked the car, but we're walking to school. We're walking our son to school, and this is something we wouldn't have done had the car not been wrecked, right? And I think that's important. When something stressful happens in your life, you have to sort of look at it in a different way. You have to try to train your mind to say, okay, it happened. You had your opportunity to be sad, to be stressed, but let's turn that off. Let's, defeat that in a way, and try to think about what kind of alternatives you have, or in my case, I have. And my alternative was to, dwell on this situation or turn the situation into a good thing, and that's what I did. So we're going to walk my son to school from now on. I don't know if this car is going to get fixed or if it can be fixed. I don't know what happens if I don't have a car. But what I do know is we'll be okay. And that's what's most important, right? And I noticed as I was getting stressed, I was feeling particularly more flaky. Like I was scratching myself. I was getting jittery itchiness. And I began to wonder if this was healthy, to feel stressed. And my wife mentioned to me that, and we hear this mentioned a lot in the psoriasis, arthritis, autoimmune, um, generally disease community, and that stress is really bad. Stress is something that it is okay, at times, because it awakens your sense of perception, at particular moments. When you're stressed, you know compete or do something at a higher state of mind. But too much stress, universally, by doctors and just by the common layman, has been known to be a bad thing. Don't worry, be happy. We hear it in music all the time. And I wondered why. Like, is that just some myth, some legend, uh, that's being passed around? Like, don't stress too much. Your health would degrade. And I'll take it a step further. Don't stress. It'll make your psoriasis worse. That's a picture of me on the left of my psoriasis right now. Um, I put it through a little filter, make the redness of my psoriasis come out a little bit more, so that y'all can see, how the splotches and how deep and red they are. So it's pretty bad, right? It's cold season over here, so my scalp is pretty flaky. Um, but I definitely noticed when all this was happening, I was just itching, 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 itching. I was feeling overwhelmed. My heart was palpitating. I was just really freaking out. And when I calmed down and I thought about it, about stress, and I said, well, what's the science behind it? Um, why is it that when we're stressed, many people feel, and now I'll explain, it's not a feeling, it's actually a fact, that their disease is getting worse, that they break out worse, the itchiness is worse, the psoriasis is worse, um, eating disorders are worsened. And what I found was startling. There is science behind this. Uh, Medical studies done that studied stress. But before you can get into stress, we have to talk a moment about what happens to our bodies when you're stressed. And basically, what happens is when your body gets stressed, I have to look it up. Your hypothalamic pituitary glands in your brain, uh, handle your hormones, in particular, excuse me, cortisone. These two glands, the hypothalamic and the pituitary glands, uh, signal to your adrenal gland in your kidney to release cortisol. So, in simpler terms, when you get stressed, and this happens in any level of stress, so we're talking about physical exertion, lifting weights, running for extensive periods of time, your day to day workload, um, anything that stresses you out physically and mentally, psychologically, your hypothalamic and your pituitary glands will signal your body to give off cortisol. So, cortisol is a very important hormone in your body. And basically, it's important because it sets off your fight or flight instinct, right? So, when I wrecked my car, immediately, and I noticed this, immediately I was aware and I was livid. My body was tense and active, and at the same time, I was trying to like rationalize what was happening. And but anyways, so in this heightened stress situation, cortisol released into my body, and it does this to calm you down. It increases your blood sugar, controls your state of awareness. It boosts your energy so that you can handle the stress. Uh, and it does a whole lot of other things. Like it manages your body fat and protein and carbohydrates and all kinds of stuff like that. But in terms of when you're in a stressful situation, your cortisol attempts to de-stress you. Um, and that's good. It's good for it to happen sometimes. The problem with people like me who have psoriasis or an autoimmune disease is that because of the state of our bodies, uh, being that we have psoriasis, flakiness, um, arthritic pain, the state of our body actually makes us stressed constantly. So when you're in a constant state of stress, that's basically the worst situation you can be in. It's horrible because your body is constantly feeling like it's fighting, or like the fight and flight instinct is constantly being uh, perpetrated in your brain and throughout your body, therefore increasing your levels of cortisol. Now, cortisol in excess, like any hormone in the body, in excess is very, very bad. It actually does inverse to what it's supposed to do. So in light dosages of cortisol, natural dosages of cortisol from your kidneys, um, your your immune system and your inflammation in your body is lowered actually because you're less stressed. But when when cortisol is in high, it's in a high function and throughout your body, your immune system, your reproductive system, your digestive system, and even your if you're like a teenager, your growth is severely hampered by it. Uh, and I'll just bring you here. If you go to WebMD, you can take a look at this. But here are some of the results of having too high levels of cortisol in the body. Anxiety, depression. Depression is almost synonymous with people who have psoriasis or an autoimmune disease. Headaches, again. Heart disease. I have high blood pressure, hypertension. Problems sleeping, memory, concentration problems, and weight gain. I suffered from weight gain basically for the last 4 or 5 years. And also this was like the shocking part is if you have too much cortisol in your brain or in your body, those glands that I mentioned, the adrenal gland in your kidneys, and your pituitary gland, they can develop tumors or masses of nodules in terms of the adrenal gland. Um, I mean, look at that: rapid weight gain, skin and bruises, muscle weakness, diabetes. There was actually a time when I thought I was going to get diabetes. That's how my triglycerides were about 1100. My cholesterol was like 300 and something. Like I'm probably near death, right? I mean, I was in a very sick state of mind, and I'm starting to come around to the notion that maybe cortisol and being in a heightened stressful situation um, is partially the culprit, right? So I mentioned that there was scientific research behind this, and in terms of people who have psoriasis and advise others that being in a stressful state of mind is bad for your disease. Well, you're right, you people who are saying that, and keep saying it, because people like me who didn't know that and did a little bit of research, I can now defend that claim and as so encourage people to de-stress their situation, um, whatever that situation may be. If we take a look here at this study I found, this is a study by it's called the Calypso Study, and it was a study over the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis in your body and the association between this axis and your the severity in your psoriasis. And basically, what this study found is that well, before I say what it found, I guess I should explain what they did. What they did is they collected saliva from 102 patients with psoriasis right after they awoke, 30, 60 minutes after awakening, at 5 different times throughout the day to determine the level of cortisol, remember that stress hormone, in their saliva. And what they found is that there was a direct correlation between bedtime cortisol and psoriasis severity. Um, in particular, in the severity of psoriasis areas. So, like in my case, my back, right, or my face, or my head, um, because that's the image you're looking at is my head. Um, Basically, when you're in a heightened stressful situation, your cortisol levels rise, and according to this study, there is a positive correlation found in a clinical trial that your psoriasis will get worse. It will get worse. In fact, and this was the most, let me bring you back to it, this was the most startling piece of information that I saw, but that being in this heightened stressful situation for too long, for a prolonged period of time, so let's say you had psoriasis since you were 14 years old or 15 years old, like I have, and you've constantly worried about how you look and how others look at you, and you don't want to go out, or when you do and you talk to somebody, the only thing you can think about is, I wonder if they notice the psoriasis on my face or on my arms or on my legs. What you're doing is you're making your disease worse. I have been making my disease worse. I mean, it may not be such a huge, um, improvement on your psoriasis, right? But what we have found indefinitely is that the opposite actually is what happens. Is that when when you're in a heightened stress situation, your psoriasis will get worse. So this study didn't find out, for example, um, how much better your psoriasis became um, when you had lower levels of cortisol. It didn't find that. But what it did find is a positive correlation between having a heightened level of cortisol in your body. But the startling piece of information is this part here. Is something called HPA, or if we look back over here, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal dysfunction. And that basically means that those hypothalamic and the pituitary glands in your brain, because you've been in a prolonged sense of stress for too long, those glands have been constantly telling your body, produce cortisol, calm this person down, calm him down, calm him down. You may actually have caused a dysfunction with those glands in your brain and the adrenal gland in your kidneys, meaning that they do not function the way that they're supposed to. They might be over functioning, under functioning, and the likelihood is that they're over functioning, meaning that you have too much cortisol in your body. I have too much cortisol in my body. I've been stressed for so long. So, and all of this came about because I wrecked my car. Because I wrecked my car, and my wife told me, try not to be stressed. People within the psoriasis community have told you that being stressed makes the disease worse. And in fact, not just people in the psoriasis community, but I don't know if you've heard of a Dr. Pagano. He's a scientist not a scientist, a medical practitioner that looked at Edgar Case's readings on psoriasis and dieting. And he developed a diet very similar to John's. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if John found Dr. Pagano first and used a bit of what he found in developing John's dietary planning. But Dr. Pagano actually discussed that stress was a massive factor in the severity of psoriasis with psoriasis patients. So, what's the lesson of what has happened to me, and how can this apply to you? The lesson is we people of disease have to develop ways where we can cope with stress or stress mechanisms around us. Is vital actually for controlling our disease, or at least limiting the effects of outside factors on our own health. So, how do you do that? You can drink teas, take baths, meditate. Me personally, I think one of the greatest tools that I have, that I'm fortunate enough to know how to do, is play music. Music for me is a great outlet, and it may be a great outlet for you too. Listening to music, you don't have to play music, but you can listen to calming music. I would listen to, I don't know if anybody's heard of this band. They're called Hun Her Tu. They're a Mongolian traditional band. They practice throat singing, meditative, rhythmic singing. I guess that's the only way I can explain them. It's spelled let's see, Hun Her Tu, HUNHUUR, and then TU. Look them up. They're a great band to listen to, a great group, because I don't know if I could call them a band, and they're a group that produces some of the most fascinating music I've ever listened to, but also some of the most calming music I've listened to. And I mean, this may be a topic that I get into more about how having helping others cope with stress, because I am a stressful person. I don't think I've coped with my stress completely, but I know that I've managed it a little bit better. And despite having this calamity occur in my life, yesterday, I think I've handled it well enough to uh, I mean, obviously, to be able to share my story, a day after it, and offer my advice to whoever cares to listen to it. So what's the lesson? What's the lesson of this story? That's, don't be stressed. Everything will be okay. Time and perseverance uh, can overcome anything. But it starts with ourselves. We have to look at a situation, however stressful, and say, what's the good in it? Can I find the good in it? And if I can't, can I find the good somewhere else? Can I step back from my situation and find that peace of mind? Because I need it and you need it. Right? We all need it. And this goes beyond just me and my disease, and now the scientific basis behind being stressed and severe psoriasis. And that's anybody watching this video. If you're stressed, cortisol levels in your body rise, and if you're stressed for too long, over a long period of time, you can cause a dysfunction with your HPA axis, therefore basically imbalancing your whole system. So that's just I don't know if this was for you guys or more for me. I like to think it's for both of us. But I needed a moment to de-stress, to explain what happened, how I cope with it. And you know what? I think I'm coping with it right now. I think putting this video up, being honest about how I feel and what happened to me, I think this was a great way for me to cope. And for anybody who watches, thank you so much for watching, because you helped me. Just being part of a platform that lets me just vent about what's happened in my life and what's going on with my life. That's just amazing. So thank you so much for watching. And I know I blabbered on for, half an hour. I don't know if anybody's going to even listen that long. I hope you do. And I hope you, respond to me and let me know what you think, how you feel. You talk a little bit about how you're stressed and how you cope with that stress, and give me advice too. I'm always looking forward to people helping me out as well. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your time, and I will post another video very soon, another video diary. I think I ended off with my diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis, juvenile psoriatic arthritis last time, so I'll be doing that. And I'll also be, if you guys like this format, doing a little bit of research on my end and looking into psoriasis. I have some pretty big plans later on. I mentioned Dr. Pagano. I'm going to talk a little bit more about him and what he found. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about Dr. Campbell and his China study, and really try to hammer down what this disease is and how we can treat this together. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and you have a great day.